Hello friends! I'm sitting down with y'all today to talk about something that I am very, very, very passionate about, and that is apprenticeships. And more importantly, if apprenticeships for both tattoo and piercing here in America need to be paid or if they can be done unpaid. So if you are interested in becoming a tattoo artist or a body piercer, if you are already an apprentice or just getting started in your apprenticeship journey, or if you're someone who's interested in potentially training someone to be an apprentice and you want to make sure that you don't accidentally break the law and owe lots of money to the government and to people who might sue you, stay tuned. So here in America, we have some really pretty clear, concise laws as far as apprenticeships and apprenticeship structure goes. In fact, if you didn't know this, you can go to apprenticeship.gov. It's the US government's whole website for apprenticeship information, and it's got lots of good links and information. But right here, right away, when you go on and you ask, what is an apprenticeship? What does that look like? One of the first things that it says is that this is a paid job. Yes, you read that right. This is a paid job. And even if you click the link to go for information for people who are looking for apprentices or looking to get into it, one of the first things it says is that you can earn a living wage, that this is a paying job. And right here, for the definition of apprenticeship from the US Department of Labor, it goes over that apprenticeships are combining paid labor, a paid job, doing work that you are paid for, along with classroom instruction to prepare you for a skill. So essentially what that means is that apprenticeships, and every program may differ, but apprenticeships in general combined both unpaid teaching and educational time and paid labor and on the job time. And the exact amount of both is going to vary based off the apprenticeship program that you're in. Now, a lot of times when we talk about paid apprenticeships in the industry, the first thing that folks always go is, well, there's lots of unpaid internships. You don't get paid to be an intern. Why would I pay my apprentice? And the good news is the Department of Labor has an answer for you, easily accessible on apprenticeship.gov. One of their common FAQ questions is, what is the difference between an apprentice and an intern? And for the differences, it talks about the length of time, that internships tend to be a little bit shorter. It talks about the structure, that apprenticeships tend to be more structured with a clear, concise training plan. And most importantly, number 4, it talks about pay, that apprenticeships are paid. This is coming directly from the United States government website about apprenticeships. Apprenticeships are paid, whereas internships are often not. And they are establishing a clear distinction and clear delineation between the two. And furthermore, if we go to a separate section of FAQ questions about apprenticeships from the Department of Labor, we have the question, how is an apprenticeship different from other types of work-based training? Because there's more than just apprenticeships and internships when we talk about work-based training. There's things like medical residencies and on-site training and practice. There's things like work trade programs and school work programs. So what makes an apprenticeship different? And the very first thing listed, again, from the Department of Labor, from the United States government, is that apprenticeships are paid opportunities, that they're actual working jobs where you're working and making a living and getting paid for your time. Furthermore, in America, we have something called the Fitzgerald Act, which is an act that was designed specifically for apprenticeship programs to help regulate and protect them. And in fact, while the Fitzgerald Act does help with the regulation of apprenticeship programs, the first and foremost, most important facet of the Fitzgerald Act, as listed here from the original iteration of it, is to formulate and promote the furtherance of labor standards necessary to safeguard the welfare of apprentices. So what that means is that this act was designed to protect apprentices, to protect their welfare, to make sure that they were working in safe conditions, and also to make sure that they were paid for the work that they were doing. See, here in America, we have the Wages and Fair Labor Standards Act, and this is the act that sets minimum wage and says that, hey, if you're working for someone, you have to be paid for that time. And this is a law that we have had for an incredibly long time. And this law does in fact apply to apprenticeships thanks to the Fitzgerald Act. And if you're not sure, or you're trying to argue, oh, well, it doesn't apply for my apprentices, or oh, apprentices don't have to be paid, here's a legal analysis from workplacefairness.org, and it says right here that apprenticeships are a job and that you must be paid. In fact, here it says that the average beginning wage for apprentices is $15 per hour, which is statistically accurate. Most apprentices start off making more than minimum wage, even though technically by law, you're only required to pay an apprentice minimum wage. A lot of this has to come from the types of careers that offer apprenticeships, but yes, the average apprenticeship program in America is paying more than minimum wage. Now, a lot of times when we talk about this, I will hear tattoo artists and piercers say, well, this doesn't apply to tattooing and piercing, this applies to other apprenticeships, not ours. But in fact, it does, and there is actually legal precedent for this. I have a colleague in the piercing industry who ended up injured on the job and had to go to the hospital, and while she was at the hospital making that report, they were like, oh, this happened at the workplace. Tell us about your workplace. And it came to light that she was an apprentice who was not getting paid. And immediately the Department of Labor stepped in and ended up assisting her with suing her mentor for hundreds of thousands of hours of back pay. And this suit was successful. It was very easy for them to find her mentor guilty in court of literally wage fraud, of not paying an employee for their time. And this is just one instance from someone that I personally know, but there are other cases with legal precedent that if you are not paying your apprentice, that you can easily get sued for back wages. And apprentices, if you're watching this and you are not being paid, the law is on your side. And if you have records of time worked as part of your apprenticeship, which is a requirement for piercing and tattoo apprenticeships in many states, that is literally all you need to prove that you are owed wages for that time. Now, anytime I talk about this, the other thing that always gets brought up is people always go, well, why would I pay you to learn a career? You don't get paid to go to college. And the whole reason why apprenticeships are structured differently than college or than internships is because of the nature of the structure of an apprenticeship. When you have an apprentice, part of an apprenticeship is the fact that they are doing labor that replaces that of an employee. So when someone is an apprentice plumber, they are still going out and plumbing and fixing things and installing water lines and doing work. When you have an apprentice at your bricklaying business, they are still out there laying brick with your employees that they would be doing. And when you have an apprentice at a piercing studio or a tattoo studio, they are still answering the phone, cleaning the studio, answering emails, cleaning tools, doing inventory, posting on social media, processing jewelry, doing setups and breakdowns. All of these are tasks that a paid employee or independent contractor would be doing for your business. When you go to college, you are not also cooking lunch for the whole school and answering your professor's emails and cleaning the classroom morning and night. If you were doing those things, it would be a different situation. The other big difference is in the way that learning and education is done. When you're learning in a classroom environment where you're paying to be there, you're paying for an environment that's 100% focused on your learning. You have a dedicated teacher who is spending all of their time specifically teaching you what you've been there to pay to learn, and your only responsibility is learning. However, when you are an apprentice, your responsibility is, yes, learning, but it's also tasks that an employee would do, like I just mentioned, cleaning and answering phones and processing tools and jewelry. But your mentor, your teacher and instructor's time is not 100% focused on your learning and education. When your instructor is doing a tattoo or doing a piercing, they're also interacting with their client. They're taking their lunch breaks, they're taking phone calls, they're doing different things. They are not always giving you 100% of that time to your education, just like you aren't giving 100% of your time to your education. You are giving time to doing work tasks around the studio. And this is what sets an apprenticeship apart from other forms of learning like internships, work programs, and even college. And this is also why apprentices are required very clearly in the letter of the law to be paid. Now, I know a lot of folks don't agree with this, but the good news is it doesn't really matter if you don't agree with it. It is the letter of the law in America, and there has been legal precedent set for unpaid apprentices in the tattoo and piercing industry to sue their mentor for unpaid back wages, and the Department of Labor has stood with apprentices each and every time. That means that if you don't like this policy, the only thing that you can do to change it would be to hire a lobbyist and try and change the laws surrounding apprenticeships. But apprenticeships, according to the letter of the law in America, require that apprentices be paid for the time that they do working in a studio. And what that typically looks like in other industries is that apprentices are paid a base hourly wage for 40 hours of work a week, and then some of that time is split learning and some of that time is split working, or they do something where it's 3 to 4 days working where they're paid and they're doing work tasks, and then 2 or so days where they come in and they are not paid, they're just learning. But if you are formatting a piercing or tattoo apprenticeship like this, then that person comes in on their unpaid days, they are not doing any work because those are their learning days. That means they are not answering phones, they're not processing tools, they're not doing setups and breakdowns, they're not helping clients, and they're not posting on social media. They are purely there to learn. If they do any tasks that an employee would do for the business, they then need to be paid for that time. If you are interested in becoming a tattoo artist or a body piercer and you live in America, please do not settle for an apprenticeship where you will not be paid. It is not legal, and the law is very, very clear about these things. And if you are already an apprentice in a situation where you are not currently being paid, I would strongly suggest you sit down and talk with your mentor about the law regarding apprenticeships here in America, and also start keeping track of all of your hours worked, because that will be very important if you decide to sue your mentor for back wages. And if you are someone who is interested in training and apprenticing a tattoo artist or a body piercer, it's very important to follow the letter of the law, regardless of what your opinion about that law may be. I'm not saying that you have to like the law. I'm not saying that you have to agree that apprentices have to be paid, but it is the law and you do have to follow it. Just because I don't like seatbelts doesn't mean that I don't wear one, and doesn't mean that if I didn't wear one, I wouldn't get fined. I hope this video helps if you are an apprentice or an apprentice hopeful, and I hope that all of you take the time to make sure that you find a studio to learn in where you are treated fairly and with respect and paid for your time, energy, and effort. And if you like this video and you want to hear me talk more about safe apprenticeships, go ahead and click like and subscribe, because I have some more stuff about this topic coming up in my next video.